Talofa lava, this is Pacific Waves from RNZ Pacific. I'm Susana Suisuki. Coming up.
That was the best of the best. Take us back 52 years ago.
Aitutaki's Auntie Nane shares fond memories of past Pacific Islands Forum meetings. Also,
considering that everyone kind of prepares separately, the team's feeling really good.
Team Cook Islands depart for the Pacific Games in Honiara. And later on, a new report reveals how the criminal justice system in New Zealand is broken for Pacific peoples. But first, Fiji is bracing for the worst as Tropical Cyclone Mal intensifies to a Category 3 storm on Tuesday night. The country's Met Service is reporting the system is currently a 2 with wind speeds of 111 kilometres an hour. Already, the westernmost islands of Fiji are experiencing strong winds of up to 80 kilometres an hour and forecast to strengthen to storm force winds of up to 130 kilometres an hour later on today. The National Disaster Management Office has opened 8 evacuation centres with more than 290 evacuees residing. A heavy rain and flash flood warning remains in force for low-lying and flood-prone areas across Viti level. Natural Disaster Management Office Director Vasiti Soko says people must be on high alert.
We sincerely plead with members of the public to please stay away and refrain from crossing or swimming in flooded rivers, streams, walkways, drains and crossing. We must also not forget that given the high amount of rainfall recorded so far, the soil is heavily saturated. Therefore, the threat of landslide occurring is imminent.
For the latest on the cyclone, head on over to www.met.gov.fj. We'll also be providing the latest updates at rnzi.com. While the Pacific Islands Forum Leaders meeting officially came to an end last week, the Cook Islands are still abuzz with excitement. Aitutaki's beloved Auntie Nane soaked up the community's warmth as she ticks off being involved for a third time. She's been to all 3 leaders' meetings held in the country where she played an integral role. She met with Tiana Haxton to take a walk down memory lane.
Tungane Purea, affectionately known to the locals as Auntie Nane, sits down with a cup of tea in hand and slides over a black and white photograph. Captured is the first ever Pacific Islands Forum Leaders meeting in Rarotonga in 1971. She points herself out amongst the crowd in a lineup of prime ministers, premiers and official delegates, fondly recalling the event.
The forum, can't beat that one. That was the best of the best. Take us back 52 years ago. That's when the first forum was held. That was a beautiful forum held in Rarotonga. The people and the community got together. And then the 97 one, and then the 2023 one. But out of all that, the 1971 was the best.
Among a team of Cook Islanders, Auntie Nane was specially selected to be a liaison officer for the leaders that travelled to Rarotonga. In 1971, she cared for Papua New Guinea's first Premier, Michael Somare. In 1997, she attended to Australia's John Howard. Her eyes lit up as she reflected back on the excitement of her assignments.
The best part is I can remember when I was chosen to be a liaison officer. I was so proud because I don't know how to share it, but it was so beautiful being with the Prime Minister all the time, to their functions, to their hotels. And in their cars when they travel, the liaison officer is always with them. I met a lot of the prime ministers that arrived in 1971. But we are always with the chief liaison officer, that's Sir Tom Masters.
She was only 18 years old at the time of the first forum, and while she has just recently celebrated her 70th birthday, she is still full of energy and was more than keen to take on responsibilities for this year's event. Her role was less strenuous this time around, as she was in charge of driving official delegates in Aitutaki during the leaders' retreat.
A VIP drive out, but I was happy to meet all the High Commissioner to each of the country and all the official delegation I carried, and the securities, the policemen, and all the overseas mate. I was just very happy that I've been given that opportunity to look after them. And it's so nice to see the leaders from overseas and our people here in Aitutaki getting together. And with beautiful smiles. That's all the leaders want. Smile, sweetheart.
Auntie Nani's smile lights up the room as she shares more of her photographs, giggling as she points herself out teaching Somali the traditional Cook Islands dance. She left quite an impression on the late Premier, as it was he who posted these photographs to her enclosed in a handwritten note. The photographs are a beloved treasure, but it is the stories behind each one that bring the stills to life.
I'm so glad that I got all these photos. It's a beautiful memory. That's my experience. And I'm so very proud to have these memorable photos.
As we finish our cup of teas and the sun sets beyond the Aitutaki lagoon, Auntie Nani lets out a breath, content. While the forum may be over, the memories of the week are alive and dancing in the twinkle of Auntie Nani's eyes.
The President of the Federated States of Micronesia has told Lydia Lewis his country could be staring down a fiscal cliff if the US Congress doesn't approve its Compact of Free Association urgently. The Federated States of Micronesia started its new administration in May, led by President Wesley Simina. At the tail end of the Pacific Islands Forum Leaders Summit in Rarotonga, he sat down with Lydia, who started off by asking about domestic issues.
The United States and the Federated States of Micronesia were able to sign off on our Compact of Free Association. But, you know, it has to go through Congress for its approval because of the funding and other requirements of the U.S. laws. So our part is done. Our Congress has ratified it. Our state governments have approved it, endorsed it, and we have sent it to the U.S. Congress. And now it's with them. But given the situation in their own Congress, it's kind of held up. But right now, we're hopeful because hopefully in the next few weeks or few days, it will be introduced as for the U.S. Congress to consider. So we're hopeful that pretty soon we will have some funding sources through that compact mechanism.
And what are the implications if it doesn't happen soon? What are you working out within your government at the moment, and what measures are you putting in place?
Well, if nothing works out, if the U.S. Congress does not approve it in time, we're faced with a fiscal cliff. That means we will have to find sources from different sources of funding, and that's not out there available immediately. So what we understand is that the U.S. Congress also understands that situation, and they're working very hard. And we're very grateful that even during this situation they're faced with in the partisanship in the U.S. Congress, that is one issue they have agreement on. The Republicans, the Democrats, the Senate, and the House, they actually have agreement on working to push approval of the Compact of Free Association. So for that, we're grateful to the United States Congress for its...
What are your priorities for this term?
Well, for this term, if you have noticed during my inaugural address, I use one phrase, and that is, our unity is our strength and our prosperity. And what I meant by that is that the unity of our 4 states, because we have 4 states in our nation, and we have to unite them. We have to find the common grounds that will keep us together. So we're working on that very hard. And we understand a lot of these common things that run through our 4 states are similar things, because they're islands. Climate change is a huge problem. Infrastructure is also a huge problem, both in physical and other way. So we're trying to make sure that we get through that, at least trying to keep the ropes of unity, to keep tying up our states. And from that, we are also looking at our own region, the Micronesian region. We have 5 governments to deal with, and being the chairman of the NPS, I'm very mindful of that. So that kind of unity we want to also bring out to our Micronesian region as well. And of course, from there, we want to move to the Pacific region. So it is something that we're really, being here my first time, I'm very happy to learn that the Pacific way is working. Yes. So that's how we want to look at things at this point.
Your predecessor, President Panuelo, highlighted some very damning allegations of external powers before he left office. Have you felt those pressures from China or external powers?
Well, thank you for that question, because I'm sure that's something that's been going around. But I cannot speak to what my predecessor, President Panuelo, said. I don't know where he got those claims from. Maybe he had his sources. But for me at this time, we have no evidence of any of those things, whether they existed or not. That's not out there for us to see immediately.
Have you felt any external pressure?
Not really. China, for your information, People's Republic of China is a very good friend of the Federated States of Micronesia. We have diplomatic ties with them, so we operate within the norms of diplomatic relationships. So I don't see nor do I feel any kind of pressure that some may have thought were there or happened to them. So that much I don't know.
What about relations with Taiwan?
We have our economic relations with Taiwan too. We send people there for business purpose, for economic purposes. So there is ongoing, exchanges of our business people going there. So we don't have any issue with Taiwan also. I mean, they have their own. 2 of our friends with the Freely Associated States, Palau and the Marshalls, they have a relationship with Taiwan, and we have no objection, we have no problem with them.
Have you had any pressure, though, from the People's Republic of China not to have relations with Taiwan?
Well, we have the one China policy, and there is that element out there. So whatever that one China policy entails, we follow it, because that's part of our diplomatic relations with People's Republic of China.
Thank you. And now moving on to the COVID recovery, many of the other prime ministers and presidents that I've spoken with here say that the COVID recovery is an uphill battle.
Oh, there's no question that the impact of COVID-19 was real for us economically, socially, and all this. But I would say the Federated States of Micronesia was one of the luckiest nations in the Pacific, because we took quick action in locking down our nation borders. And it was President Panuelo who started that, and the Congress, I was the speaker then of the FSM Congress, and we made sure that those restrictions are in place. And we were I think almost 3 years we were in a lockdown. And that also didn't help, because that means we need to bring in commodities, supplies, and all those things. So it really impacted our economy, especially in the tourism area. But fortunately for us, we had a little money that we set aside for these things. And Congress, our FSM Congress, appropriated those fundings. And then we had assistance from ADB and, of course, the U.S. And what happened is that during that lockdown, we were able to vaccinate our citizens way up, so the vaccinations were very high. So when that COVID-19 actually came in, the impact was minimal. It wasn't that much. There were a few people who died, but maybe old people or people who were already sick. So we were very fortunate that we were able to put in place some restrictive means or some means to combat the impact of COVID-19.
What is the deficit following COVID-19, and how do you plan on building back and recovering?
Well, for us, of course, the tourism industry is, private. Those are private businesses, hotels, dive shops, those kind of restaurants. So what we did is that we provided, I think, about 14 million to 15 million from our own, local revenue. So that kind of helped those businesses, hotels, restaurants, who were impacted by the closure, the lockdown of our borders. And what happened is that during that same time, like the ADB also provided some grants, some funding, so we were able to support those people who became unemployed because of the... So there was those assistance that came in at the time, so we were able to continue to support our tourism industry. And right now we're just continue to make sure that the tourists come back, all these things. So we're working on transportation and to see if they can bring back the tourists that we lost during the COVID.
What's your predominant market? I don't think it'd be easy for me to get there from Aotearoa.
Exactly. Well, that's why this kind of meetings that we have is the connectivity is very important to us. And it's not just connectivity in terms of the transport of goods and supplies, but also transport of people, like tourism. So we're really exploring all the different options that are out there. We're visiting all these different countries with airlines. We're also establishing our own transportation task force. They will look at all the different options, airlines, sea transport, to see how we can put together a package that would develop and become useful in the transportation industry. Yes.
And as I'm speaking with you, we're at the Pacific Islands Forum, and being such a significant figure in the Micronesian bloc, I wanted to ask you a little bit about what transpired. Is there going to need to be an apology from any of the leaders to Nauru because of what has transpired, or where does it sit at the moment? Give me a lay of the land.
Apology for what?
The fact that Nauru left, I'm wondering whether or not they need an apology for something, if any of the other leaders have question them on issues that they didn't see fit in terms of the appointment of Baron Wanga.
Oh, well, for the issue of the appointment of Baron Wanga, that's already a done deal. It's something that's already done. So we were not looking at that. We're looking at our process moving forward into the future. For example, appointment of next SG, if it comes to that after the terms of Wanga's terms are up. And of course, we are also looking at how to, make sure that strengthen the framework that we put together under the SUFA premises. Then that means the establishment of the offices and the employees of those offices. So those are the kind of things we were discussing.
What was it that went wrong and needs changing for next time?
Well, I'm not sure there was anything that went wrong with the appointment, but the process itself, because of the special circumstances of the time, so they kind of rushed and put together something, package that we know it's a work in progress. So that's exactly what happened. So we were discussing how to strengthen, like I said, to make sure that something like what happened before would not happen again. And we want to make sure that the SUFA agreement will be a model that will be used throughout the life of PIF. So we're hopeful that that will be the kind of things to be in place. As you know, it's not, like I mentioned, it's not only on the local domestic level, but also on the regional level. We want to make sure that those kind of unity, solidarity will remain in place for as long as we have the Pacific to be called home. Yes.
And the release of treated nuclear wastewater by Japan, is the Federated States of Micronesia for or against this release, and why?
Well, you might have heard that my predecessor made a very strong statement in the UNGA when he was there, and then that position has evolved. Right now we are looking at our position to be based on science, whatever the scientific recommendations, and that's where we are right now. We're just, and the thing that we're more concerned about right now is how to make sure that the monitoring is very effective and timely, so we can continue to deal with Japan. And we also ask Japan to embed into the PALM agenda every year the discussion of this issue on nuclear waste.
Team Cook Islands have departed and have been given a strong send-off in the lead-up to the Pacific Games. The multi-sport event happens every 4 years among athletes from around the Pacific, and this year it's in Solomon Islands from 19th November to 2nd of December. The event sees 5,000 athletes and officials come together to compete across 24 sports. The Cook Islands team general manager, Jason Lindsay, is taking a 250 contingent and 14 federation teams. Alicia Foon spoke with him at Auckland Airport on his way to the Solomon Islands.
The team is feeling really good. We had 3 pre-events last week. We had our uniform blessing, march and a parade through town, and then we had a church service as a team. So considering that everyone kind of prepares separately, the team's feeling really good, really together, and they're really lively, which is really good. Really excited for it.
And which teams will be representing the Cook Islands?
Yes, so we're taking 14 federations. Where we have a team of athletics competitors, which is a cross of runners, throwers and jumpers. We have a couple of swimmers who have also competed for us in the Commonwealth Games, and one of them's competed for us at Olympic level. We have a couple of boxers. Then we have a team from golf, a men and women's team from football, men and women's teams from League 9s and League 7, Rugby 7s. We have a tennis team of men and women that are going to play singles, doubles and a mixed team. And we also have 2 volleyballers who are going to play beach volleyball, 2 weightlifters that have recently competed in Samoa. We're taking just under 250 in our contingent, which is huge for us.
Yeah, that is huge. And expecting some gold and some big wins in there?
Yeah, it's a really good thing. Like, we put a lot of effort into our training. A lot of our local money goes into this event because it's something where we can perform really highly in, and something that our whole country gets behind and supports us to do. On behalf of myself and the Chef de Mission, Mark Short, we'd just like to thank all our families back home in Australia and New Zealand that have helped get us here and get us to Honiara, and we hope we can do our country proud.
A 2-part report published last month explores Pacific people's experiences with the criminal justice system in Aotearoa, New Zealand. The report's lead author, Litia Tuibore-Levu, says the first-hand accounts of individuals who took part in the research reveals how the system is institutionally racist and fundamentally broken. Litia Tuibore-Levu joins me on Pacific Waves. Kia ora, Litia. Can you tell me a bit about your report on Pacific peoples and the experiences with the justice system?
Certainly. So this is a piece of research funded by the Michael and Susan Boren Foundation, although it reflects the view of the researchers, not the foundation. It is a qualitative study that looks into, as the title suggests or says, Pacific people's experiences within New Zealand's criminal justice system. And that ranges from people who have offended, a few who have survived offending or survivors of harm, family members, as well as Pacific peoples who are working in the criminal justice space. So it has quite a wide scope in whose stories we were able to gather from our knowledge holders. And in many ways it has helped that is there to help address a very clear gap in particularly legal research around Pacific people's lived experiences of the justice system. We don't have a lot of work, done on this issue. There has been some work done by some amazing Pacifica scholars, but a lot of the work that has been done has often not been from Pacific researchers, and it didn't involve actually speaking to people within the community. So that's something that this research hoped to address, and for future research by others to keep working and developing on.
How long did this research take, and how many people were involved in this report?
So it started officially at the beginning of 2021, and obviously there was about a 6 to 8 months delay with COVID in being able to talk to people directly. So it's taken about 2.5 years, which is a little bit over than the initially intended timeline. And it was a research team of 4 of us, so myself being the lead researcher, then my 3 awesome research assistants, Liz, Hugo, Bella, and Gabriella. And then we spoke with over 50 knowledge holders. So some of them we spoke with individually, others came in groups as well. I think the total number was, about 58 off the top of my head.
So when you say knowledge holders, they're offenders and survivors?
Everyone we spoke to. I don't really like to use the word like research subjects or research participants because truthfully they have more to teach us than we really can offer. And I wanted it to make sure that when we spoke with, whoever we spoke with, it was about honouring their experiences and, collaborating with them, that, they hold the knowledge and we have the generosity of their time for them to share their stories and experiences with us, which is, it's an important and serious role that we take on in doing that. And I don't like to see the researcher as above the participant. It should be an equal working relationship.
And what were the key findings in this report?
So I guess to talk about the key findings, it's worth sort of restating what the research question was, which is to address or what are the key systemic issues affecting Pacific peoples within the justice system and how might those issues be overcome. So the findings slightly differentiated between each of the groups that we spoke to. However, overall, what was really coming across very strongly with everyone was that socioeconomic disenfranchisement, across generations with our Pacific communities was the most cited risk factor that was both driving those into offending, but as well as being a barrier for those in accessing justice and navigating the justice system. And those, that's not something new, but it was interesting to hear that from various individuals across the research, and just the way that socioeconomic stresses are really intimately tied into issues relating to culture and identity and family expectations and just being able to access justice at the very first instance and move through the system. We also had some interesting perspectives, interesting is the wrong word, some actually sobering perspectives around Pacific people's experiences within prison. Again, that's not something we often get insight into as members of the public. What happens in prison is very much, out of sight, out of mind. But we thought it was really important to speak to those who had been incarcerated to learn about their stories. And what we heard, very sobering, that prison was deeply lonely, isolating, a very toxic environment, and did not meet the rehabilitative objectives that it sets out to achieve. In addition to that, there was a lot of frustration expressed about particularly family members' experiences moving through the justice system, and as well as survivors who expressed, one of them expressed feeling incredibly exhausted, re-traumatized by the system, and just that lack of agency and the inability that they felt to have a voice in the matter and a say in the matter in their own matter, as well as family members not finding that there was adequate cultural or collective support available to them, whether they were a family member of someone who was a victim of harm or someone who was an offender, that they felt very isolated from that process as well. So although there's been a lot of, I think, lip service given to diversity, equity and inclusion within the legal profession and within the justice sector, over the last few years, particularly since 2018, that the sort of material realities of people navigating the system, particularly Pacific peoples, is not really improved, nor has there been really any substantive structural change there as well.
That's Pacific Waves for today. To listen back, head on over to rnzi.com/programs. We're also on Apple, Spotify and iHeartRadio podcasts. From myself and the RNZ Pacific team, so far so far.